joining me for today's NaNoJumo. A bunch of my friends over on the craftjack.com design team and I were talking late at night and decided we were going to jump on this train that was already, 10 days in and join in for the NaNoJumo party, so to speak. Now, this is nationwide journaling, nationwide nonstop journaling for a month. And so we are behind. We are now on day 12, and this is where I'm at. For our design team, we discussed late at night that we were going to try this out, and so that's what we are doing. This is day 12 of November, and our theme for the CraftJack design team is hearts. Tomorrow I think we're planning for leaves, so I'll have to see where I can go with that. So all of these are jelly plates. Yesterday my video was so long that I decided today I would do a little bit of prep and I would try to pick something that I didn't really have to do a whole lot of work with. So I grabbed onto my jelly prints since I have so many of them, and in there I found all these different colors and of pages and punched them all out with my 3 different sizes of hearts. And then I grabbed onto this lady's face. She is a Jane girl from Jane Davenport, and she is going to be the focal point of this project. When I made that print, I was demonstrating jelly plate printing on a video for the CraftJack design team, and I think that was last month actually, demonstrating all different kinds of stencils and how I use them. So these Jane girls, there's several stencils in the package or in her collection, and I absolutely love every single one of them. There isn't one that I have a problem with using, and you've probably seen them a couple times if you've been watching my videos at all. So for this, all I'm doing is I am taking all of these hearts that I punched out because hearts were our theme, and I am slowly adding them to this big pile and filling in where her hair should go. And I believe that Jane Davenport actually has a similar type of project where she collages the hair, and I think maybe it's a Lifebook lesson. But so I just took this face and ended up with this heart idea, and it's probably inspired quite a bit by Jane Davenport because I knew this face would fit in well with this type of layout. So I am just throwing them on randomly. I'm trying not to put them side by side, but after the tediousness of this part of the project, I do get to the point where I'm pretty sure I've got a couple of the same pattern overlapping or the same color overlapping. And I'm not all that concerned about it actually. I'm just going to keep layering and layering and layering until the whole page is full and I've gone off the top of the page. I wanted to go off the top of the page because I wanted her hair to keep flowing. And once I'm done with all of this, I am going to grab onto her face. Oh, I'm doing a little curl over her shoulder. Can't forget about that. And it kind of looks like one of those wigs from France. I guess it was in the Renaissance, I guess, where they had all the curls in their big, huge, tall, curly wigs. And that's what this is. It's got a little sheep tail coming down there. And then I'm going to add her face on as well. I did try brayering this, and it worked out well on this turnaround, but my brayer got a little bit of matte gel on it. And what I'm using here, I'm not using just a regular matte gel. I showed you the container for the 3D matte gel from Finnabair, which would have worked perfectly fine. That would have been a perfect product for this project. But because I like to teach classes, I have purchased something called Heavy Gel by Golden, and I buy it in a gigantic jug. And I use that. I just keep refilling the 3D matte gel container because it has a beautiful lid on it. It seals very nicely for the product. So now I'm just making sure I've got everything secured down, and then I'm going to go through and I'm grabbing my heat gun, and then I'm going to grab my brayer and I'm going to go over that again with the heat gun and the brayer. Now I had to stop because I got glue on my brayer, and what ended up happening is it was pulling the acrylic paint off of some of the hearts, so I had to stop using the brayer. But it did help to heat the page and brayer at the same time, because it allowed it to dry a little bit faster and adhere a little bit closer to the page. When you get into something layering like this, you can end up making a big, huge pile of papers, and I didn't really want that since it's in a journal. I wanted the journal to still close. So this is one of those where I wanted it to sit close to the page once it all was said and done. So now I'm just sketching in where her neck and her shoulders will be, and then I'm going to grab my Neocolor IIs and start coloring. So I color in her face, and the color that I use for most faces is called Salmon. And I love this. I use it as my base for almost all faces that I do. And I've even cut up a bunch of the salmon crayon and mixed it in with some white gesso in order to create a pale surface wash that I can use on all of my faces, so that I have a little bit of prep on them so that I can lay the faces over anything I want and still be able to paint on surfaces. So this got a little bit too heavy because I wanted to be able to see the words underneath, but I also wanted to have a little bit of the gesso effect and the paint on there because I needed that to prep the page a little bit because it was starting to ripple and rip and lift, and I didn't want it to start pilling. So by adding the gesso and paint mix onto the page and then taking it off right away, I prevented the pilling, I sealed that portion of the page, and everything worked out absolutely perfectly, even though I put layer upon layer upon layer of watercolor crayon on top of that. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to dry that, and the reason I'm drying that is because I do have the gesso in there, and it doesn't hurt to hit the top of the page for a little bit either. Now, I'm going to reach for blue. And the reason that I chose blue is because I didn't want to outline everything in black. So I chose this navy blue that mostly matched the outline of the face. And it's this is crayon that I'm going to use here is the Prussian blue. And I wanted it to kind of bring her face into the picture because there's not a whole lot of that blue in the jelly prints. So I added it in the watercolor crayon, and then I'm liquefying it and activating it, and then after I'm done with that, I will put some additional water on there to create some definition by taking away some of that color and moving some of that color away to the edges. By moving it to the edges, I have a double effect. I create a little bit of highlight and shadow, and also I still can preserve a lot of that paint that I put on there. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and grab my ochre. And I like ochre as a shadow color because it does remind me a lot about, the similar color to like a freckle or something. So it's a natural color for a Caucasian face. And I even like it as the base color for an African American face, for a darker skin tone face. And so this ochre is absolutely perfect for a lot of that kind of facial feature type of stuff. Now, I do want everything in here to blend, but I'm not being too particular yet because I know that I've got several more layers to add in. And this is kind of finicky, but I go into this bit of a state of zen and I forget to come out of it sometimes when I'm coloring faces. So next I'm adding the salmon back in, and that is so that I can blend the harsh edges of the ochre and bring the highlights back into the face. And then on the neck, I'm really just kind of, going for it with the neck. I don't really have a plan. I didn't really do a good job drawing it, so we'll have to see how we end up with it in the end. So now that I've added shadow, and blended that together, I'm adding highlight and blending that in together. It's very important to me to go back and forth between shadow and highlight until you have the look that you really want. The other thing is that there's highlight and shadow on every aspect of this picture, and I'm not perfect. Sometimes I totally mess up my shadows, but that's okay. It's my art. So whenever I want a blush on a girl's cheeks, I use whatever color I'm using for the lips. So yes, if I had put purple on her lips, I would have put purple on her cheeks. And that just helps bring the face a little bit more together. And then I just blend it out so that only the hint of color is there. I'm putting some white in the eyes and the lips and adding a little bit of highlight in the ridge of the nose and the brow. And then I'll add a little bit more in the neck. And then I think I'm adding some more in the cheeks as well at some point. But yeah, so that's how I blend my faces. I really love using the Neocolor 2s for faces. If I could just, take one supply on the trip, it would, or one set of supplies, it would be one of the Jane Girl faces and some Neocolor 2s. So the next thing I'm going to do is bring in some of this blue and add a little bit more shadow into the shirt area and into the back of the neck, and blend that all in a little bit more nicely. And then I'm going to reach for my next color. Now my face is all wet and my shirt is all wet, so I'm going to start looking at the background until those things are dry. Now I grabbed a golden yellow, an orange, and a scarlet. And I didn't realize until I had gone out for lunch and come back that I had made the space around the face and that whole playing field of the picture, I'd made that all red and then faded out to orange around the red and then to yellow at the edge of the pages. I didn't realize that I had done that until I looked at it in the end, and I really like that I accidentally did that. It's always nice when your accidents are positive ones. I like how this really came out exactly as I wanted it to. Sorry. So I'm using a water barrel flat brush for this, flat tipped paintbrush for this, and I am using it very, very wet because I want it to all blend together and have it be a seamless blending of the yellow, the orange, and the red. And so I am using this very, very wet. I am liquefying that, I'm scrubbing the page a little bit to make sure there's no crayon lines left, and then I am going around and making sure that I have some nice line work and that everything is blending, just fading out, just blending perfectly. And because the other colors are still wet, I don't have to fight with it all that much, actually. So here I'll go and continue on. Once I did realize the pattern that I was going for, I probably could have gone in and fixed it so that the red did go right up to the shoulders, but I didn't actually bother to do that. I allowed it to stay nice and orange and rich, and that's okay. So once I've got everything blended, I do go over it a couple times because I do start seeing hard lines as the watercolors dry, and I just keep going back over and over again and making sure that those are nice and smooth transitions. The next step that I'm going to do is I'm going to take my navy blue Stabilo pencil and I'm going to go around the edge of all of the hearts because I found that all of these hearts were, even though there were so many of them and they're such, blatantly different colors, they were all sort of blending into the background. There was no border around any of them, and they all kind of disappeared. How does such a big glob of brilliant colors disappear? I don't know. So I went and reached for my black Stabilo. I reminded myself I didn't want black on this page. I always reach for black, but I decided no black. And so instead I said, well, what is my highlight, or my main color for detail? And so my detail work color was the navy blue of the jelly printed face and the shirt. And so I went in and grabbed my blue Stabilo and away I went, creating the shadows and the definition that I had been looking for. Now, I know that I just replaced black with blue, and that when I challenged myself to not highlight absolutely everything in the picture with black, I still did it with blue. So in that way, I sort of failed my own challenge. But I reached for black many times, and I put it back down. Even now, when I look at this page, I keep thinking to myself, man, if only I had like a fine pen line of black around each one of those hearts. If only I had a black pen line around the the girl's shirt and all that stuff. And I have to keep turning myself away. So in order to prevent myself from going back in later and adding the black, I have signed this page off for today. And I'm signing it off as proudly as I can, because I am determined to not go in with my black marker or my black pen or my black Stabilo. I'm going to leave this without black. One of the other things that I'm going to do is, or that I've done with this piece that I don't typically do, is I have not put a quote on it. 99% of my projects will have some sort of quote on them, and I usually just go to my collection on Pinterest in order to find something appropriate. And today it was, no, I am going to have 0 words on this piece of art. And you know what? I'm liking her. I don't really feel like there's enough room for words. I feel like I could put some words on, but they'd be overlapping again. And I really like how this is just sort of sitting there. Like there's, I want to say plain and simple, but obviously this project wasn't plain and simple. But there's no title, there's no quote, there's no black. I'm doing good here. This is a successful page for me. There's also no stamping, by the way. I'm typically right there with the stamps. I usually have some sort of background stamps. I usually have some sort of collage underneath as a start point. I didn't do either of those things. So this was a real deviation from my typical artwork, and I really like where she ended up. I really love that she kind of came together to almost exactly what my vision was, even more so. Once I put her back and shoulder in there, that really to me emphasized that she was a person, that she was a somebody, and that really spoke to me. And the best thing is when your own art speaks to you and encourages you to continue on. So yes, I did put blue everywhere, and I did use it to go over absolutely everything. I even used the blue to put in her eyelashes later after the camera's turned off. So that is that. Here is my November 12th Nano Jumo for the CraftShack.com design team. And here are the close-ups and all the detail of all the little fiddly work that I did. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, comment, and give me a thumbs up if you liked this video.